Hi everyone. Nice to see you all. I see some new faces over here. Put your hands up. It's your first time here. Oh, one person. Okay. You've been here before, you guys?
I've been here, but I've never been to a class.
Okay. Wow. This is your first ever class here?
Yeah.
I feel good. Wonderful. My name is Rabbi Lawrence, and so the topic this evening, which I thought I would throw out, is not a topic you hear rabbis talking about too much, and that, ladies and gentlemen, is a great shame, because it happens to be that there's quite a bit, I wouldn't say tons, but quite a bit written about this in Jewish thought, and that is health, healing, and exercise. Do you hear rabbis speak about that too often? No, not so often. That's a bit of a shame, because one of the greatest rabbis that ever lived, by the name of Rabbi...
Oh, it's okay, thank you very much.
Besides Rabbi Lin...
Timing is everything.
It is. Timing is everything. Okay, by the name of known as the Rambam, Rabbi Moshe ben Maimonides, about 1,000 years ago, in Egypt and Spain, he was very into this topic. But more about him in a couple of moments, because a lot of what we're going to discuss this evening for the 25-30 minutes we're together, I'll be sharing a lot of his ideas and writings. He wrote a lot on this. He was actually a doctor. And we really go to him for a lot of Jewish ideas. And he made this one of the features. However, you may have realized here in America, you may have heard about it or seen it, we have a bit of a obesity epidemic. Have you seen this? Mm-hmm. Which does, when I grew up, I didn't grow up in England, of course. I didn't really see it so much over there growing up. I don't know if it existed here in the days that I grew up, maybe 30 years ago or so. But it's very noticeable. And I haven't been to much of middle of America, although I really would love to go. I've heard it's a big thing there to be big. That's what I've heard. That's what I've heard. So I read recently, I have some statistics that something like 34% of Americans over 20 are obese. And just overweight, it gets to about 35% of people overweight. And children, obese children, I see children who are and it breaks my heart. I mean, and in a lot of the cases, I think it's beyond the control. And it's basically what they're fed and how they're fed. And there's a lot more to it, sociologic stuff and how they're brought up and the attitudes. But this obesity problem that we're seeing here, I mean, it's a disease because most people, the highest rates of death, I believe, from my research, is heart disease. And we know now, clearly, there is a connection between heart disease and overeating. Actually, I even read, while doing research for this, there's actually an obesity problem in dogs. Dogs, klavim, hunts. And they say there's actually a correlation between obese people and obese dogs, which makes sense, because if they're obese, they're not walking around too much. That means the dogs are pretty much inside the entire time. So even the dogs are fat, which is a problem as well. Okay? So let's talk a little bit about this, and let's try to see what Judaism has to say about this very important topic. Well, first of all, is there a mitzvah to be healthy? And by the way, this is not a discussion on kosher, by the way. I'm very clear upon this. Kosher is a completely different topic, which I've discussed before and I'm happy to discuss again, but it's not tonight's topic. You can walk into a kosher restaurant and all the food is completely kosher, with the greatest rabbis watching over it the entire time, with only the holiest ingredients from, I don't know, the land of Israel, whatever it is. And yet, that food, at the same time, could be extremely unhealthy. I believe the Rambam were to walk into many kosher delis and see the food that's up there, he'd be like, it's kosher, but don't eat it. I think that's what he would say. So, is there a mitzvah to be holy and to be healthy? And the answer is absolutely. In the book of Deuteronomy, chapter 4, verse 15, it says, "V'nishmartem al shavseichem." You should guard your health very greatly. Anything that you know is going to help your health is what you should do. If something is discovered not to be good for your health, you should stop doing it. There was a period of time where smoking was not considered such a bad thing. Doctors would smoke in their own surgeries. And yet it was discovered they were bad. And people were obligated to do something about it. You've got to take care of the body you're given. Because in our view, your body is a gift. And therefore, and life is a gift. And in Judaism, we're obsessed with life. We want life to last as long as possible, even moments extra. So if you can prove that something you do is going to increase the length of your life and improve your quality of life, you're probably going to have to do it. Okay? Every moment of life is precious. So much so that you can break pretty much every law in the entire Torah just to increase a life by a moment. Right? That's pride for us is a precious thing. Okay? So that's the Torah itself. So let's discuss the Rambam. So we're going to the Rambam because the Rambam was the one who really wrote a lot on this. And he was a doctor for the Sultan of Egypt, where he lived. And he did a very good job for him. Actually, I believe the story is told that the Rambam, Maimonides, that we have a lot of his writings, was actually the physician of his harem, of his harem, however you refer to it. And the Rambam got that job because he wouldn't trust too many people with that position of abusing that power, but the Rambam, Maimonides, he trusted. Now, I'll tell you something fascinating about the Rambam. Most people are not aware, even people who are very learned in Jewish literature are not aware of this very key and important fact about Maimonides, the Rambam. And that is that the Rambam is the only person in all of Jewish history that took the entire corpus of Jewish knowledge and made it into law. It shows what a massive task was. No one, people have taken bits and pieces of it. They took books on Shabbat and halacha law books on Jewish holidays and charity. They did, but he's the only one that took everything, the entire Talmud, all Jewish writings, and made one law book out of it, which was a very big thing to do. Not only just time and work-wise, but also gutsy thing to do. You're pretty much saying, which he said, that my job was that you don't have to go through all the Talmud and all the scriptures and all the writings. Just read my book and you'll be good. Pretty gutsy to do that. And in his time he was criticized. People used to burn his books. But history has voted that the Rambam's writings and works are kadosh holy. Everyone goes to the Rambam. We may not always follow him in Jewish law. For example, this is fascinating, but you know we Jews have a thing that when we wash our hands before we eat bread, we don't speak between the washing and the eating the bread. You see, Friday night, this is, by the way, the hardest mitzvah for Jewish people, keeping quiet for 2 minutes. There's a large family or a Shabbaton until you get to actually eat the bread. The Rambam actually holds that, he believes, that it's not a problem to speak in between. It's not considered to be hesach hadat, it's not an interruption between washing hands and bread, and therefore people who follow the Rambam, and there is one community that follows the Rambam exclusively, and that is the Yemenite Jews, because he saved the Yemenite Jews. Right? His writings and empowerment of that community was very, very big. So the Rambam, for them, to this day, is the holy of holies. You don't mess with the Rambam. We respect the Rambam, we don't always follow his laws. We follow the Shulchan Aruch, Rav Yosef Karo, who used the Rambam, but not exclusively. Anyway, why do I tell you that? Because in this book, which is called the Mishnah Torah, which literally means the repetition of the Torah, he took the Torah and repeated it for Jewish law. Somewhere in this book, he turns around and he says, you know what? It is a mitzvah to take care of your health. And then he starts to give health directives in the Mishnah Torah. Now, one of my great teachers called this part of the Mishnah Torah the least studied part in all of the Rambam's writings. We're very quick to read the Rambam on Shabbat. We'll read the Rambam in Jewish philosophy, and we'll read the Rambam on the laws of Hanukkah, and the laws of Purim, and the laws of charity. Oh, everyone's reading that. But he talks about physical exercise, and suddenly, we're not so into it. But the same book that discusses the laws of charity and the laws of Shabbat, the same book, has a chapter called Hilchot Deyot, laws of conduct, and he says, by the way, you've got to watch what you eat. And we're going to see, it's fascinating. By the way, you're not going to believe it was written 1,000 years ago. I'm going to tell you things that I'll give you the original I have over here. You'll be like, this could be written yesterday. Should we do something together? It's actually fascinating. The first thing he says is that what you eat is going to affect your health. Now, that may seem obvious to you, eating health, but going back then, even recently, people never saw that connection. You eat one thing, healthy is another thing. He was the one who gave the holistic. He says, actually, the best way to treat any person for any disease, change their diet. If that doesn't work, give them medication. Now, when you give them medication, start with light medication, and then you get stronger and stronger. Don't start with the heavy stuff. Start with light stuff, and that doesn't work, you get harder and harder. Ideally, food for him was a... Then he says that it is impossible. If Sham, Shiavinu Yadad Davar Miyadad Habora, it's impossible to know God. It's the Rambam speaking. V'hu if you're sick. You can't expect to be a spiritual person if you're not taking care of your health. That's the Rambam. in the Mishnah Torah. Lefikach, therefore, tzarich laharchech adam atzmo medevarim. You should stay far away from things that you know ma'avnim zaguf that break your body, damage your body. Like atzmo medevarim hamabrin. And you should eat those things which are curative, that are good for you. Health and food, big connection. That is a mitzvah. Isn't that fascinating? And then he says the following words. Leolam, never. Lo yachal adam, a person should never eat. Elaku shara'ev, until you're hungry. When do you eat when you're hungry? Now we live in a society where we eat because we like to eat. Who doesn't like to eat? We're Jews. And it's America. There's a lot of food out there. He says no. You're hungry, you eat. V'lo yashteh ela kashut tzameh, don't drink until you're thirsty. V'yali sheh nikavav, and this is, by the way, one of his themes he talks about a lot. You've all finished eating over here, so I feel okay saying this. Don't hold back going to the toilet. Now, this is one of the big themes of the Rambam. You've got to check your bathroom activities. He actually says one of the worst signs of bad health, says the Rambam, are people who hold back going to the bathroom. And he means number ones and number twos. Okay? Actually, there is a mitzvah in the Torah that is, you need to go to the bathroom, you got to go straight away. Well, try to find a bathroom to go to. Okay? But he says such a thing as bel shaksu. To hold in your waste is one of the worst things you can do for your body. He's actually going to, a lot of the food, he's actually going to recommend foods to you, which are fascinating, by the way, which still apply, that make your system work well. And then he says, don't hold your back. I feel regach for 1 moment. You need the bathroom, got to go. You need to use the pass water, defecate, do it immediately. Let's start on this overeating thing, because this is a disease which we have for sure in this country, and it's spreading like a disease right throughout the entire world. King Solomon, in the book of Mishlei, says, Shomer pivel shono, a person should guard their mouth and their tongue, and guard yourself from trouble. So the commentators jump upon this verse, try to figure out what he's saying. Guard your mouth and your tongue. Well, if you're guarding your mouth, you're guarding your tongue. What's the difference? So he says there's a two-way street. Our mouths, we talk. That's the tongue, lashon, as in lashon hara, bad talk, or lashon tov, good talk. We don't speak enough about that. But what's your mouth is where you eat. So he says, watch your mouth. There's things that go in your mouth and things go out of your mouth. We Jews are very good about talking about what comes out of your mouth and what you should be careful what to say. However, how good are we at what goes into your mouth? Right? How many spiritual religious people do we know who eat terrible foods that we know are shortening their lives and smoking and not taking care of their health? Says King Solomon, watch what you say, what you eat. You're going to guard yourself from trouble. Now, there is a mitzvah, as we know, to eat food on Shabbat. And to eat good food. That is a mitzvah of Oneg Shabbat. Right? When you're a kid, Oneg Shabbat, remember that? In your communities? That is a mitzvah. You should enjoy, and actually the good food you should reserve. By the way, what we have on a Monday night meal is what our ancestors, not the farm, literally saved up all week to eat a bit of on a Shabbat. You realize that? Right? That steak you'll just go out for and eat and pick up a steak sandwich. But people literally had to work very hard just to get one bite of that. So Shabbat has to be the better of the food. You have steak on during the week. You've got to have super steak on Shabbat. However, even there you have to be careful. All right? The commentators point out that even the Vilna Gaon said people use this overeating as an excuse even on Shabbat. Even that has to be, you should eat good foods, but it doesn't give you a license to go crazy. So even on Shabbat, the holiest day that we have to enjoy the best foods, says the Vilna Gaon, people have to control themselves. And says the Rambam, go back to the Rambam, V'afilu gasal guf, he says overeating for a body, k'mos sam mavet, is a poison. It's poisonous. You wouldn't drink poison. Overeating is a poison. He says you can actually eat a lot of bad stuff, but you have to be very careful not to overeat it. Get away with, he talks about fried bread, right? Which is very much a donut, I think, right? People do it. So that's okay. But don't overdo it. Don't make it into your staple and a little bit of it. And he says most illnesses shabam al adam that come on a person einam ella or mipnei shemachem ra'im because they're eating bad foods or mipnei mamala bidno they're filling up their stomachs V'ochel achila gasa, eating too much. V'afilu machalim tovim, even eating too much of good foods. And actually, interesting, achila gasa. You may recognize those words from somewhere. Achila gasa. That's one of the things on Yom Kippur that you do repentance for. Achila gasa. I overate. Right? For me, it's like a half hour. Over there as well. Achila gasa. Overeating. Even good foods should not be overeaten. Teshuvah.
Yeah, but all day you...
Oh, Sfardim do it every single day. That's very, very good, right? The Ashkenazim, they just do it once a year because we eat a lot. Okay. Says the Ramban, Nachmanides, that's not Maimonides, Nachmanides, he actually says that it is possible, this is his own discussion, but this is fascinating. He actually says that it's possible for a person to be a Navel Bereshut Torah, very famous expression, which means it's possibly a disgusting person with the permission of the Torah. That's a very famous treatise of the Ramban, Nachmanides. What does it mean? You could have very, very kosher food. You could have pizza that is very kosher. And why did it kosher? The cheese was made from holy cows. And I don't know, the tomato sauce on the pizza was made by some holy woman in Jerusalem. And then you eat 2 pizza pies. You may be okay with kosher, but you've become a disgusting person with the permission of the Torah. Because you're permitted to do that. He says you missed the whole point. Actually, according to him, you missed out from a very important mitzvah of being a holy person. A holy person. Okay? So number 1, overeating for us as Jews, according to the Rambam. Exercise. Do we have anything to say about exercise? So the Rambam does. And he defines exercise in a fascinating way. He says exercise is defined as a strong or weak movement that is vigorous. However, a weak movement that's vigorous. But what is that? I thought about that a lot. And then it occurred to me, something like yoga is a weak movement, it's vigorous. Right? I mean, I only did it once and you can barely breathe, okay? And as a result, the person's breathing increases. That's the Rambam's take. When your breathing increases and speeds up, you're exercising. If you're in the gym, like there's old ladies on the treadmill just walking 1 mile an hour, eating a sandwich, right? Or every single gym, there's always one guy with a towel around his neck talking to the receptionist. He thinks he's exercising, he's not exercising. You know those guys always want the towel and schmoozing, those people? Never exercising? No. You've got to actually be involved in the exercise. And he says it is not proper to do physical exercise except on an empty stomach. That's the best way to do it, he says. And after visiting the bathroom. After visiting the bathroom. That's what I said. I'm married to someone in Brooklyn, it's okay, I'm used to it. The best time to exercise is in the morning when a person awakens from their sleep, says the Rambam. And after a visit, he said, as has been stated. And then he goes back and he says, for a meal, you should go for a walk. You should exercise, do some work, physical work, or do some exercise until your body warms up. You shouldn't eat on a cold body. Right? You should get yourself a little bit warmed up, a little bit, just walk around a little bit. Basically, he says, do physical labors in the morning, working up a sweat, then take a break, cool off, and after that, you can eat. Right? So as we wake up and eat breakfast straight away, actually is not the Rambam's recipe for health. Taking a warm bath after strenuous activity is recommended, which for us is standard. You take a shower right away, after a short while, and then eat. Right? You got to wake up early to do all this, but that's his view. You wake up, you exercise, you get your body warmed up, take a shower, then you're ready to eat. Your body's going to break down the food much better rather than just sit there. Then he says, and by the way, there's a lot more here. I've just chosen the select pieces. The ad klal, I'll give you another principle of health. As long as a person exercises vigorously, does not eat too much, has a soft stool, okay, that person will not become sick, will feel robust, even if they eat harmful foods. That's what he says. That's what he says. Okay? However, the Chol Mishu Yoshev Levetach Ve'enu Mit Amel does not exercise. Person who sits as an exercise neglects the call for nature. Mishad Nekavav. He doesn't go when he needs, or she doesn't go when she needs, and is constipated. They'll be in pain. They're going to feel run down. He says, right? Even if they eat good foods and take medicine, you're not watching your stomach. You're not watching the food that is in there. You're not going to the bathroom when you should, and changing your diet to make sure that, as we say on Pesach, let my people go. Right? It's a problem. And even even good foods and medicine will not help you out over there. So how are you meant to exercise? So he says you start, I mean, we kind of know this already now because we're experts in all this, but you start light and you go bigger. And the commentators say there was a story of a Greek wrestler, very famous story, you see this online, who had a baby calf. And he would carry this calf on his shoulders a few hours a day. And then he would do the same the next day and the next day. And eventually the calf got bigger and bigger and bigger. And eventually the same guy, a year later, was carrying a cow. Okay? So they learn out from this that when it comes to exercise, you start light, but you have to keep pushing more and more. There's got to be resistance in order for the exercise to have an impact, whether it's running or doing weights or whatever it is. And he says that's the way to do it. Okay? Okay. Then the Rambam says, well, how are you meant to eat? How are you meant to eat? What do he means by that?
Sitting down.
Sitting down. Very good. How else? Right? Because people eat standing up at all. People eat, yeah, they do. Not good. Jewish law is actually against it. I mean, we're all guilty of it, but you're actually meant to sit down to eat. How else are you meant to eat?
Slowly.
Slowly, right? Not fast food. Slow food. What else? So we have another problem that we don't chew our food. You're meant to chew your food, says the Rambam, until it's almost like liquid. We eat chunks of food. We just like, because you're eating quickly, you throw it down. He says no. How should you actually be sitting when you eat, says the Rambam? And by the way, all of this, I didn't bring this down. I actually have medical studies here as well. I can send this to you of top universities that discuss this information that back up the Rambam's words. Not that he needed it. He says a person should sit or recline on their left. Why the left? One thing, right. And also you have a flap of your windpipe. If you lean to the right, it opens up, which is why in Pesach you lean to the left to show you're a free person. So you lean to the left. You should lean a bit to the left when you eat. In those days, they didn't have chairs like this. They would literally like lie down. They would recline on a couch. But you have to be down when you eat. You shouldn't be standing up. Okay? What did your mother always tell you after a meal? You shouldn't swim. Any truth to that?
No.
There, who said that? So I tell you something. I always thought it was a fable, right? The Rambam says you shouldn't do strenuous activity, and then I found an article by a Harvard Medical School doctor by the name of Robert Schmerling, Jew, and he says there actually is an increased flow of blood to the stomach and intestines to absorb, and your extremities, he says, actually end up not getting the blood because your blood goes to where the food is to break it down. So he actually says for like 30 minutes afterwards, you should try not to do strenuous activity afterwards. Is it as dangerous as they say to swim? It probably isn't. But he says trying to digest food after eating sets up competition for blood flow between the digestive organs and the muscles. So there is something to it. And he says it's best to wait 60 to 90 minutes after a heavy meal. But yeah, probably not. And that's what the Rambam says as well. He says after you exercise, he says, you shouldn't get overly excited. Right, take a walk, just sit. We don't do this, right? We eat and then we're off. But sitting and waiting and just let the food digest, says the Rambam, is something to it as well. Okay. How about sleeping? Is there some way people should sleep? Enough, right? Enough. How much should a person sleep, by the way? What do you mean? Let me ask you a question. Who over here gets 8 hours a night? Put your hands up. Okay, so maybe about a third of you. 7 hours? 6, usually. Wow. 5. 4, 3, 2, okay, 5. And we get more than 8? Probably more. Sometimes you get. On Shabbat, very good, very good. This guy looks well rested. Doesn't he look as well as he like? You look 11 hours. What's the ideal? What do you think the ideal is? What do they always say the ideal is? 8 hours, 7, 8. So the Rambam says that your day is how many hours? 12. So a third should actually be 8 hours should be sleeping.
So your day's 12? You mean day night?
Well, out of a 24-hour day, he says a third of that should be sleeping, which is. Hey, try to sleep. Now, we don't really get that nowadays. I mean, when you have kids. Yeah, that you give up on that. But now they're saying, you read studies now, they're saying that good sleep is as good as exercise. You can exercise if you're not sleeping well. And this country's obsessed with sleep. I mean, I didn't grow up with this many sleep medications, right? But they're all over the place, right? It's like a massive multi-billion-dollar industry just trying to get people to fall asleep. Thank God I die down, unless I got some stress on my mind or my kids jump on my head. I'm usually like, I'm out cold and the drool's coming out, as soon as I'm out. But this is a serious problem in America today, especially with the lighting we have. It used to be in the olden days, like, the sun would go down and people would literally just go to bed. Because how long could you prolong the fire and the candles? Literally just go to bed and we'd wake up early with daybreak. That's the way it used to be. There's a natural flow, but we've created a society where 24/7, or 7-Eleven, whatever you want to say. How many times should you eat a day? What do they say?
Rambam says lunch.
Depends on the size of the meal. So now, I mean, it goes through different phases. I've seen, 5 times a day. How do you stay so thin? How do you do that? By the way, there's a whole thing called the French paradox. Hear about this? Now, do you hear about this French paradox? There was a 60 Minutes on it. Look this up, called the French paradox. The French eat their croissants and their baguettes, and the escargot, not you, right? And all the other chocolate, and they have all this foie gras, and yet they walk around like skinny. You know why they say they are like that? Well, what? Portion size is one. They walk a lot too, and
They stop eating.
they stop eating their full, I guess. Wine. They drink wine. They say that wine has a propensity, and the Rambam talks about wine, by the way. And he was working in a Muslim country where they were obviously not allowed to drink wine. He says wine is one of the best things you can drink. Wine is the ability to help you digest food. It's good for you, and it's the best you can actually drink is wine mixed with water. Wine back then was a lot more potent, and we had to water it down. The wine actually was very, very strong in those days. So it actually says that a person could actually eat 1 or 2 meals a day. There's this general I read about. I read a lot of stuff on this stuff called McChrystal. You hear about this guy, McChrystal? He eats 1 meal a day. He also runs a marathon every day as well. But he eats 1 meal a day, and that guy is lean. He's got the body fat of this table. I tell you, that guy is unbelievable. The Rambam says you should have more in the morning. Now they're saying breakfast is a very important meal, more in the morning, and then a light meal at night time. A light meal over there. And then he says you should sleep on your left side and then switch to your right side. And there's something about the left because the organs are on one side. I read something about this recently as well. Yeah, you know something? If your organs are over, you don't put too much pressure. You want to rotate one to the other. And then he says you should not eat before you go to bed, which now that everyone's talking about. This is the Rambam 1,000 years ago. You should wait, according to him, you shouldn't eat 3 to 4 hours before you go to bed. 3 to 4. The Shulchan Aruch says 2 or 3. Imagine that. All that late night snacking, right? I get back from it, I don't eat during the day. All right. How comes the cereal? You're pouring it in, right? He said 3. You should go to bed hungry. Sumo wrestlers who consume 20,000 or so calories, 10 to 30,000 calories, each day or something crazy like that. They have to put on weight. They eat their biggest meal right before they sleep. They sleep on big food. That's one of the ways sumo wrestlers. Those guys? They're big fellas. Right? That's one of the things that they do. Okay? So he says elsewhere, he says, ideally, 1 meal a day. We actually do little meals during the day, right? We do they say grazing is the way to do little bits of food right through the day. Okay. So he says the day and night make up 24 hours. One needs to sleep 1/3 of the time, which is 8 hours, says the Rambam. Same thing with Hilchot Dayot, same book. One should sleep towards the end of the night so that he sleeps 8 hours, awakens before sunrise. Right, that's right. Okay. A little bit more. What's the best thing to drink? Diet Pepsi, that's right. No! Water. Water is the best thing for a person's body. I mean, the amount of soda that's right. I mean, in my house, we do not have soda. When we do, it's because we have guests. The wife thinks she has to buy it. It's a big contention. Our kids are not permitted to eat it. I mean, once in a while they'll go out, they get a Slurpee or whatever. But that's a treat. And if there is soda in my house, they're drinking it, which immediately they go for. I say, oh, pass me that poison. I'll have some of that. In my house, it's called poison. That's what, they should know. If you want to drink it. But you're drinking poison. So this Shabbat you'll see some because we're having guests, but I don't want it. Just so you know. Okay? Come to my house for Shabbat. Okay? So he says elsewhere, not in Hilchot Deo, he said the regimen of health. It's known among physicians that the best of all nutrients or nutritious foods is one that is actually forbidden in Islamic law, he says, because he's writing in an Islamic country, is wine. It's abundantly nourishing, good, thin, rapidly digested. It helps with digestion, expels harmful superfluities from the pores of the flesh. It's many other virtues. Then says the Rambam, this is probably the most famous Rambam that all of you have heard, but you never do. The Rambam said it. When a person is sick, they should drink or eat. Did someone say Gatorade? Yes, the Rambam said, drink a liquid that's got the same color as artwork. Right? What do you say?
Arctic crash.
Arctic crash, right? That's toxic waste. Right? Mountain Dew. I mean, really? I mean, come on. You want to put that color on your body, you paint with that color. Chicken soup. Chicken soup. It does say that. It is known, he says. Sorry. One should always attempt to partake of the meat of chickens or hens. One should always drink their broth, the soup. Because this kind of fowl has the property of improving physical complaints. May even cure leprosy. He says, listen to this though. This is going to blow your mind. This is 1,000 years ago. You ready for this? Stay away from chicken or fowl that has been fattened by force feeding. Now come on. That's wild, right? Force feeding is the worst thing, he says. He says chicken soup's the best thing. Now, there's actually a lot written on chicken soup, a lot of studies. One from Singapore, they did a study of chicken soup and pork soup, right? And they said other soups are good for you. They're saying that chicken soup has these neutrophils that somehow do something specific about having a cold and drinking chicken soup. There's a lot of studies on that. He does not talk about it, but the Torah itself does and mentions it. That one of the things the Jews complained about when they left Egypt was they didn't have the food they ate in Egypt, and one of those foods was garlic, shum. And the Talmud says that garlic satiates, keeps your body warm, brightens the face, increases vitality, and kills parasites in the bowels. That's the Talmud. That's 2,000 years ago. Garlic, right? The garlic. They love their friend. Their garlic, right? They're all about that. Right? This is very, very good. Actually, garlic was such a big Jewish food. There's a Mishnah, part of our old Torah, in the Darim that someone showed me, that if someone says, I shall get, people used to make vows upon themselves for various reasons. Whatever the reasons are, not for now, but they'll make certain vows. So you would make a vow, I vow not to eat an apple. Right? You shouldn't do this, by the way, okay? I vow not to eat chocolate cake. Do not do that because you will eat chocolate cake. But if a person says, I vow not to get benefit from a person that eats garlic, they're not allowed to get benefit from a Jew, because the Jews were known as the garlic eaters. Isn't that fascinating? That's the Mishnah. I thought it was very cool. I don't have to tell you how good garlic is for your body. In my house, we're big into it. Okay. He then says the order of the food you eat is important as well. Give me 2 more minutes, we'll be done. He says you should start with light foods and then eat heavy foods. So if you're going to eat chicken and then meat, eat the chicken first and the meat. If you're going to eat salad, then you can eat the salad. You should always eat the lighter foods, right? And he says that eating fruit after a meal actually is not good for you. And he doesn't say why, but I read a study that says if you eat heavy foods, the fruit goes in and gets trapped behind it and starts to ferment in your stomach. Right? So I know we will eat fruit as dessert, but he actually says it's not, it gets trapped and starts to, he doesn't say that. He says you should have lighter foods first. You should start with fruits and vegetables and then move on to heavier. You shouldn't start with the heavy stuff and eat the light stuff afterwards. He says, do not eat, this is the Hilchot Deot. Again, the same law book that mentions any other part of Jewish law. Do not eat a lot of dried fruit, and certainly unripe fruit. It's like a sword for the body. He says figs, grapes, and what's one of the best foods you can eat? I don't know if he had kale in his day. Kale is very good for you. Actually, that kale salad upstairs was
Delicious.
out of control. How good it was. He doesn't mention kale. He wasn't that. He wasn't that like. He wasn't a hippie. He was a Rambam. Figs, grapes, and what do you say? What? I don't know if he actually had bananas back in his day. Is it?
Avocado?
Olives,
Dates are good. All these are good. No. 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 No.
Is it a fruit? Oranges.
It's a durian. That's a smelly fruit. You smell one of those fellas before?
Yes.
Strawberry?
That is the smelliest fruit in the entire world. It tastes pretty good, they say. I couldn't get close enough to actually eat it. They actually sell us in Queens on Tu B'Shvat, and they were selling the durian fruit in the supermarket. I came back because my wife would, if I brought it home, it stinks your entire house out. There's hotels in Singapore, you're not allowed to bring a durian fruit inside. It's actually science, it's very
You're not
smelly
allowed to
fruit.
bring it on trains in Singapore.
Go on trains.
It's just
Avocado.
No, all these things are great, by the way.
Pineapple.
No,
Pineapple's very
it's a kind of nut. Well, it's actually not a nut, actually.
almond.
Almond is correct. Almonds, he says. And by the way, I believe they call almonds a superfood. He says figs, grapes, and almonds are always wholesome, both fresh and dried. You may have as much of them as you need. There's no limit on them. You can't overdo oranges. You can overdo grape juice. You can overdo that. But those you can actually eat: figs, grapes, and almonds. He says, but do not make them into your regular diet. What?
You can overdo crazy.
You can, yeah, they're actually very sugary. Actually, but who knows? Back then, maybe they were different. I'm not sure. You know, they've changed them all now. I'll tell you what. This is a personal thing. I want to say.
Before these grapes, like
I would like to. This is a personal thing. It's something I did with my wife 6 months ago. I'm not telling you to do this. I'm not judging those that do, but probably shouldn't mention this. But it has nothing to do with tonight's topic per se, but or the Rambam. But I give up wheat. Get wheat. I'm convinced. Again, this is just me speaking. Call me a kook, a crazy person. I think they've messed up the wheat in this country, not the rest of the world, with all this GMO stuff. It's non-digestible. I know a lot of people. I'm not celiac. I'm not. I eat it, but I think there's something in there, and it's messing with our stomach. I gave up my wife, which means I gave up pasta. I gave up cookies and cakes, which I used to eat a lot of. So that could be part of it for sure.
gluten or you mean wheat?
I mean wheat. I eat gluten. I eat spelt. Spelt happens to be untouched, and Shabbat I eat spelt. And I tell you something, immediately I lost 13 pounds, like that. It literally within a week or so, it literally just, again, I'm not telling you, I just think the production of food, there's something going on. Have you seen these movies like Food Nation and the other one? It's
Super Size.
oh my god, that was,
It's horrible.
I'm not saying it's bad. I'm just telling you there's a theory out there that they've now taken it's all mass produced. It's all mass produced. I'm going to finish because the rabbi is here. You can ignore that last part. I know you don't want to finish. Says the Rambam at the end, I guarantee whoever lives by these guidelines will not become sick, but will die of old age. They will never need a doctor, enjoy perfect health, and will be in fine shape for the rest of their lives. That's a big claim of the Rambam. However, there's a caveat. Says the Rambam, this is Hilchot Dayot, this is the Mishnah Torah, the Rambam. He says these life and health preserving habits, which are a mitzvah, as we said, which you take care of your health, are meant only for a healthy person. A sick person, or one who has a disease, or has followed an unhealthy lifestyle their entire lives for many years, has to observe the special regimen prescribed in medical literature. Let's just recap the main points for 60 seconds. It is a mitzvah to take care of your health and to exercise. He says you should exercise before you eat. He says light to heavy foods, he says. He says people who overeat or are unhealthy cannot have a relationship with God. Their relationship with Hashem will be affected in a very negative way. You eat healthy, you're getting spiritual. And that's the Ramban who concurs and says, it's impossible to be holy because you could be a Naval Bereshit Torah. You could be a disgusting person with the permission of the Torah, eating kosher foods and still eating very, very bad foods that are bad for your health. You're shortening your life. Life is precious. Every second is important. Sleep at least 8 hours. If not, get 7 and 1 during the day. Thank you all very, very much. Hope you enjoyed that. Good stuff, right? Fascinating, no?
Very good.